Hello friends. Have you ever met a couple so dynamic, so unpredictable, that being around them feels like watching a live wire spark? That's Aries snake and Gemini snake. Two minds racing at light speed, two souls hungry for experiences, and two personalities caught in a cosmic tug of war between passion and freedom. It's a match made in the stars, but also challenged by the very stars that brought them together. So how do these two signs, both born under the Chinese year of the snake but influenced by drastically different Western zodiacs, truly blend? Can the fiery determination of Aries snake keep up with the airborne curiosity of Gemini snake? Can they build something lasting, be it love, friendship, or business, or will their combined restlessness tear them apart? Let's take a deep dive into the electrifying, sometimes chaotic, but always fascinating compatibility between Aries snake and Gemini snake. Love, a magnet of mystery and momentum. When Aries snake and Gemini snake cross paths, the air shifts, charged with tension, curiosity, and something hard to name but impossible to ignore. It isn't a quiet, candlelit attraction. It's kinetic, it's electric, it's the kind of chemistry that ignites without warning and leaves everyone watching wondering whether it's a beginning or a disaster. But that's the nature of this connection, the collision of two powerful identities, both shaped by Western and Eastern astrology, both designed to feel more than most, but in wildly different ways. The Aries snake, ruled by Mars and born under the mysterious charm of the Chinese snake, approaches love like a high-stakes mission. They don't love casually, they pursue with a predator's focus, intensely, instinctively, and unapologetically. Their emotions don't simmer, they boil. This is someone who loves through action, protective, devoted, and often demanding. The snake side of them adds seduction, mystique, and a quiet, almost hypnotic allure. They aren't just a lover, they're an experience. But within that experience is an edge, a pressure to merge, to own, to define. Enter the Gemini snake, a contradiction wrapped in charisma. Governed by Mercury and shaped by the same sinuous snake energy, they offer mental fireworks and emotional elusiveness. They flirt like they breathe, naturally, endlessly. But while they seem open, they are rarely transparent. Gemini snake loves through communication, curiosity, and intellectual intimacy. Their snake nature deepens their charm, making them less scattered than the average Gemini, but no less elusive. Where Aries snake says, mine, Gemini snake says, maybe. Not because they're disloyal, but because they cherish the freedom to evolve. When these two lock eyes, the room changes temperature. There's instant intrigue. Aries snake is fascinated by Gemini's quick mind, playful teasing, and effortless cool. Gemini snake is captivated by Aries' intensity, confidence, and raw vitality. At first, it's thrilling. Their conversations are filled with banter, double meanings, and a sense of danger that feels like attraction. It's a flirtation that unfolds like a puzzle, neither revealing all their cards, both trying to outplay and outcharm the other. But behind the sparks is a deeper conflict. Aries snake seeks fusion, a merging of hearts, minds, and futures. They want to define the relationship, name it, claim it. Gemini snake, though flattered by such desire, instinctively resists. They fear being caged, even by love. The more Aries insists, the more Gemini pulls away, leading to a dynamic where passion is chased but rarely caught. It's a dance of approach and retreat, intoxicating, but also exhausting if not managed carefully. The key to making this love last lies in mutual understanding. Aries snake must learn that control is not the same as connection. They must embrace Gemini's need for mental space as a sign of strength, not disinterest. Likewise, Gemini snake must recognize the depth of Aries' love and offer reassurance, not in grand gestures, but in consistency and presence. When Aries stops chasing and starts flowing, and when Gemini stops running and starts grounding, they begin to move in sync. Their love can be unlike any other, full of surprises, reinvention, and emotional evolution. They can be each other's muse, mirror, and motivator. Together, they write a story that doesn't follow a script, but that's what makes it so compelling. They might not settle into traditional patterns of romance, but their version of love can be wildly original and deeply personal. However, the danger lies in the extremes. If Aries becomes too possessive, Gemini may vanish emotionally or physically. If Gemini becomes too detached, Aries may spiral into jealousy or rage. This love can either expand them both or trigger their darkest tendencies. But if approached with emotional intelligence and mutual respect, it can evolve into something truly rare, a partnership that honors individuality while celebrating connection. In the end, this relationship doesn't just require attraction, it demands growth. It asks Aries to let go of control and Gemini to lean into depth. If they meet each other halfway, if they're willing to evolve instead of escape, they can build a love that's not only passionate but powerful. Verdict: high potential, high volatility. Handle with emotional intelligence. Marriage: a partnership of evolving paths. Marriage between an Aries snake and a Gemini snake is not a quiet Sunday afternoon in the suburbs. It's not a predictable love story wrapped in routine and calendar dates. Instead, it's an ever-evolving journey, more akin to a lifelong expedition, marked by detours, debates, dreams, and discoveries. This is not a union that fits neatly into traditional molds, nor does it want to. These two don't just marry a person, they marry possibility. The Aries snake enters marriage with a quiet but fierce conviction. Outwardly bold, inwardly complex, this personality craves devotion in its most passionate form. While they may never say, "forever," out loud 100 times, it's carved into the way they protect, plan, and build. With their Aries fire and snake's depth, they long for something enduring, something that transcends the superficial, that turns partnership into power. To them, marriage is not about settling down, it's about building an empire together. They're loyal and committed, but they expect the same level of dedication in return, often without compromising their intensity. On the other hand, the Gemini snake approaches marriage as a canvas. They don't want to walk a path, they want to draw it as they go. Gemini snake views life through a prism of ideas, options, and evolution. Stability doesn't mean sameness, it means being secure enough to explore, experiment, and even reinvent who you are inside the relationship. They're unlikely to crave the ceremonial or static aspects of marriage. Instead, they want their union to reflect who they are, changeable, curious, and complex. They want to grow beside someone who won't panic if their goals shift or if they suddenly want to pack up and live abroad for a year. When Aries snake and Gemini snake say, "I do," the energy is electric. At first, it feels like a shared mission. They're both smart, witty, and ambitious, and they inspire each other to dream bigger. Their honeymoon phase is less about candlelit dinners and more about building ideas at 2 a.m., creating businesses on the fly, planning trips that double as soul-searching. They may change homes, cities, or even their professions multiple times, viewing each chapter not as instability, but as growth. For them, marriage is more of a flexible container for their evolution, not a fixed destination. But here's where the path gets bumpy. Aries snake craves direction, loyalty, and emotional anchoring. Gemini snake craves movement, lightness, and mental stimulation. Aries wants to carve a clear route and keep walking it. Gemini wants to ask why the route matters at all. Without clear communication, this becomes a power tug of war. Aries may interpret Gemini's independence as detachment. Gemini may see Aries' intensity as pressure or control. And when conflict arises, it rarely looks like shouting, it's more often misunderstanding cloaked in logic or silence. Yet if they can navigate these emotional terrains with maturity, their marriage becomes something truly remarkable. Gemini teaches Aries how to loosen their grip, to laugh in the chaos, to live in questions without rushing to answers. Aries teaches Gemini how to ground their energy, to commit to goals, to push through the discomfort of discipline. Together, they balance vision with drive, flexibility with foundation. Their strengths become complementary rather than contradictory. In marriage, Aries snake may be the one who maintains the external structure, finances, big decisions, protective instincts. Gemini snake often takes the reins when it comes to innovation, solving problems with creativity, keeping things exciting, and introducing new perspectives that keep the relationship fresh. It's a partnership that thrives on continuous movement, if not physically, then emotionally and mentally. They're also the type of couple who often maintain separate hobbies, friends, or even work lives, and that's part of what keeps the connection alive. Neither of them is built for full enmeshment. They operate better when they each have breathing room. This isn't avoidance, it's preservation. The ability to return to each other with new stories, new insights, and fresh appreciation for the home they're building together. Of course, their marriage won't be without challenge. Aries snake will need to temper their desire to define and possess. They must learn to trust that love doesn't disappear just because it shape-shifts. Gemini snake will need to be more emotionally present, more intentional, and more willing to commit even when it feels confining. They'll need to understand that freedom doesn't mean being alone, it means being known and loved without performance. As the years go on, this couple can become increasingly powerful if they continue to evolve together. Aries snake may soften slightly, learning that leadership can include vulnerability. Gemini snake may slow down a bit, realizing that rooting doesn't mean rotting. Their differences may never vanish, but they'll begin to understand that those very contrasts are what make the relationship dynamic, alive, and enduring. In the end, their marriage becomes a hybrid, part passion, part partnership, part exploration. It's unconventional, yes, but also profound. These two never wanted a fairy tale. What they build instead is something better. A real, raw, ever-shifting love story that reflects who they are in every phase of life. Verdict: not conventional, but deeply rewarding when based on mutual respect and personal freedom. Sex: the chemistry lab is on fire. This is where the Aries snake and Gemini snake dynamic shifts from a simmer to a full, open flame. Their sexual connection is not casual or routine, it's electric, experimental, and often unpredictable. If their relationship were a lab, sex would be the experiment that keeps exploding in new and exciting ways. There's fire, there's air, there's heat, and there's danger. And it's that volatile mix of passion and intellect, of dominance and play, that makes their intimacy unforgettable. The Aries snake, ruled by Mars, the planet of war and desire, is naturally primal in bed. Add the snake's hypnotic sensuality, and you have someone who doesn't just want sex. They want seduction, intensity, and control. To Aries snake, sex is an expression of emotional power. It's not just about physical release, it's about claiming space, merging spirits, and feeling desired beyond measure. They crave depth, dominance, and a rhythm that says, "You're mine." Their touch is commanding, their energy is raw, and they bring a magnetic pull that makes lovers feel intoxicated, even overwhelmed by their presence. In contrast, the Gemini snake arrives at the bedroom like a curious scholar and playful trickster. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, brings an intensely cerebral layer to sex. For them, physical intimacy is never just physical, it's a conversation, a back-and-forth exchange of thoughts, fantasies, and gestures. The snake inside them makes their approach more sultry than chaotic. They're not wild for the sake of being wild, they're deliberate, smooth, and captivating. Gemini snake wants variety, surprise, and stimulation on multiple levels. They're more emotionally detached than Aries snake, but not cold. Their aloofness hides a deep need to be mentally aroused before anything physical can truly matter. So what happens when these two collide? Fire meets wind. Aries snake brings the heat, the pressure, the gravity. Gemini snake adds movement, freshness, and unpredictability. The result is a sexual dynamic that feels like riding a wave that's always 1 second from crashing, and neither of them wants to get off. The attraction is magnetic, the tension is erotic, the experience, borderline cinematic. But passion without awareness can burn. Aries snake, with their intense need for closeness and exclusivity, can be thrown off by Gemini snake's lighter, more exploratory nature. Gemini may flirt during the day and want playful banter in the bedroom, while Aries craves focus, devotion, and that unspoken energetic lock. If Aries takes Gemini's detachment as disinterest, resentment can grow. And if Gemini feels overwhelmed by Aries' emotional demands or intensity, they may retreat, physically or mentally. However, when these two find balance, their sex life becomes a shared realm of transformation. Aries learns to loosen their grip, exploring new forms of pleasure that aren't based solely on control or possession. Gemini learns the value of rooted intimacy, the power of truly showing up, not just mentally, but emotionally and physically. In those rare moments when they're fully synced, their intimacy isn't just erotic, it's transcendent. They laugh, explore, devour each other with curiosity and trust. Their bedroom is a place of experimentation, fantasy, roleplay, power dynamics, unexpected settings. Conversation becomes foreplay, silence becomes tension, and eye contact can feel more intimate than touch. They're not afraid to take risks or flip the script. One night could be slow, poetic seduction. The next, a primal clash of bodies and wills. What keeps the flame alive is the constant sense of discovery. Neither ever fully knows what the other will do next. Still, they need awareness. Aries snake should remember that dominance is more magnetic when paired with empathy. Gemini snake should realize that freedom doesn't mean detachment. Physical intimacy is more than a playground, it's a space of vulnerability. And when both partners recognize that, the sex becomes not just hot, but healing. Long-term, this pair will never fall into routine. Even after years together, their sex life can remain charged, so long as they keep growing individually and together. Aries brings the fire that keeps desire burning. Gemini brings the wind that keeps it from suffocating. The key is communication, trust, and a shared sense of adventure. When they get it right, they create a connection that satisfies body, mind, and spirit. It's not always easy, it's not always peaceful, but it's almost always unforgettable. Verdict: electrifying chemistry, if they don't fry the circuit boards. Friendship: partners in mischief. The friendship between an Aries snake and a Gemini snake is like throwing a match into a box of fireworks. It's dazzling, unpredictable, and full of explosive energy, but somehow, it works. These two personalities, both unique and strong in their own ways, have the potential to become lifelong allies or maddening rivals, and sometimes both at once. The friendship they share doesn't follow rules, it rewrites them. The Gemini snake is the quintessential social shapeshifter. They can adapt to any crowd, read a room in seconds, and make even the dullest conversation feel like an audition for a Broadway play. They're witty, charming, and elusive, never quite where you expect them to be, and always one clever step ahead. In friendship, they offer humor, flexibility, and the kind of mental stimulation that makes time fly. They're the friend who texts you at 1 a.m. with a wild idea, a meme, or a philosophical question that keeps you up all night thinking. The Aries snake, on the other hand, brings intensity to the table. They don't just show up, they show up with passion, conviction, and often a slightly competitive edge. Aries snakes are natural leaders, fiercely loyal, and they protect their friends like territory. They're not passive in any relationship, and when they call someone a friend, they mean it. With the snake's refined charm and emotional depth, Aries snake is more complex than your typical Aries. They're magnetic, deliberate, and driven by a need for both connection and power. So when these two become friends, the connection can feel like meeting your favorite co-conspirator in a heist movie. Aries snake brings the heat and drive, while Gemini snake brings the clever blueprint and improvisational flair. Together, they can cook up big ideas, wild plans, and off-the-wall adventures that most people would never dare attempt. Whether it's planning a spontaneous road trip, launching a creative project, or just turning an ordinary afternoon into a hilarious, unforgettable memory, this duo thrives in the realm of the extraordinary. They complement each other surprisingly well. Gemini snake loves to brainstorm and bounce ideas around but doesn't always have the discipline to follow through. Aries snake is a born initiator who doesn't just talk, they act. Gemini provides vision and mental agility. Aries brings boldness and execution. It's the classic idea generator and go-getter combo, and when they're aligned, they become a two-person engine of chaos, creativity, and contagious energy. But of course, this friendship isn't always smooth sailing. Aries snake's emotional intensity can clash with Gemini snake's breezy detachment. Aries expects consistency, presence, and sometimes even admiration. Gemini, though loyal in their own abstract way, can seem aloof, distracted, or too wrapped up in their own world. Aries may feel abandoned or taken for granted. Gemini may feel smothered or accused of things they never meant to trigger. When egos collide, expect fireworks, but also, paradoxically, laughter soon after. Because despite their frequent differences, these two are weirdly forgiving with each other. Maybe it's because they both love the thrill of a good challenge. Maybe it's because they recognize something equally mischievous in one another. But even after a blow-up or a cold period, something always brings them back. A meme, a memory, a random call that turns into a 3-hour conversation about the meaning of life or whether pineapple belongs on pizza. And while this friendship may look chaotic from the outside, it runs deeper than it seems. Aries snake respects Gemini's brilliance and emotional complexity, even if they don't always understand it. Gemini snake secretly admires Aries' bravery and loyalty, even if they tease them about it. They check each other's egos in ways that sting a little but often lead to growth. They're not afraid to tell each other the truth, but also not afraid to hype each other up like lifelong cheerleaders. Their friendship also holds space for reinvention. These two will likely go through phases, intense closeness followed by distance, or shifting interests that take them down separate paths. But somehow, they always find their way back to each other. This isn't the clingy, talk everyday kind of friendship. It's the, we can pick up right where we left off after 6 months kind. And when they reunite, the vibe is as electric as ever. Long-term, this duo makes excellent travel buddies, business partners, or creative collaborators, if they can learn to navigate their different approaches. Aries may need to let go of trying to direct everything. Gemini may need to anchor themselves just a little more often. But if they do, they become a dynamic force of energy, insight, and shared chaos that not only endures, but thrives. This isn't a friendship of quiet weekends and safe conversations. It's one of spontaneous plans, wild debates, mutual challenges, and secret handshakes. It's unpredictable, but not shallow. Intense, but not controlling. And always, always, fun. Verdict: chaotic energy, but loyalty in unexpected places. Business: the innovator meets the initiator. When Aries snake and Gemini snake enter a business partnership, what you're witnessing is not a quiet collaboration, it's a power collision of minds, momentum, and magnetic ambition. This duo is less about clocking in and out and more about disrupting industries, challenging norms, and refusing to settle for small ideas. If their chemistry in romance is explosive, their potential in business is seismic. But it only works if they understand the magic of their differences. The Aries snake is built to lead. Fueled by Mars and sharpened by the snake's strategic edge, they are fearless in the face of challenge and ruthless in pursuit of success. They're not dreamers, they're doers. Aries snake enters a boardroom like a general preparing for war. They crave clarity, action, and momentum. They want to see goals, chase them, and cross them off one by one. The snake's presence adds a layer of elegance and calculation to Aries' fire, making them not just a charger but a tactician. They don't just want to win, they want to dominate, outperform, and make a statement doing it. By contrast, the Gemini snake is an idea machine, a visionary who's always 5 steps ahead of the present. Ruled by Mercury, they process information at warp speed. They don't just read trends, they anticipate them. They are storytellers, marketers, analysts, and futurists rolled into one, and the snake in them lends an almost psychic ability to sense patterns in human behavior. Gemini snake thrives in brainstorms and thrives even more when given creative freedom. But here's the catch: execution is not always their strong suit. They can get distracted, jump between ideas, or lose interest once the initial excitement wears off. This is where Aries snake comes in, not as a critic, but as the perfect counterpart. Where Gemini envisions, Aries builds. Gemini sees the forest. Aries starts chopping down trees to create a road. Gemini says, "What if?" Aries says, "Let's do it." Gemini brings innovation, Aries brings implementation. In a perfect balance, this becomes a high-functioning, fast-moving, and agile business machine. Think about the energy of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, or Elon Musk and his best engineers. One drives vision, the other drives output. Aries snake will take the abstract and make it tangible, keep deadlines on track, and turn Gemini's whirlwind of ideas into actual marketable products or services. Meanwhile, Gemini snake will keep feeding the engine with fresh concepts, new approaches, and clever ways to pivot when the market shifts. Their ability to adapt quickly makes them excellent in fast-paced industries, tech, entertainment, marketing, startups, or anywhere disruption is currency. But here's the fine print: ego management is critical. Both Aries snake and Gemini snake have dominant personalities, just in different forms. Aries asserts through action, power, and decision-making. Gemini asserts through intellect, wit, and charm. Aries might see Gemini as scattered. Gemini might see Aries as rigid. If not managed, these perceptions can breed resentment or mistrust. The danger zone arrives when both start questioning the other's authority or micromanaging each other's domain. The solution? Clear roles, mutual respect, and unshakable trust. Aries needs to understand that Gemini's chaos is often where genius lives. Gemini needs to recognize that Aries' control is often the reason progress happens. If each can own their lane, Aries in execution, Gemini in strategy and ideation, they become unstoppable. It's not about overlapping, it's about complementing. Another thing that makes them formidable is their shared hunger for growth. Neither of them is satisfied with mediocrity. Aries snake wants results. Gemini snake wants revolution. Both want impact. They're not just chasing profits, they're chasing legacy. And when both are aligned on a mission that inspires them, they'll push each other harder than anyone else ever could. They also bring balance to their business culture. Aries snake sets high standards, leads by example, and instills discipline. Gemini snake builds vibrant communication, keeps morale high with clever engagement, and can negotiate like a magician. Together, they can build a brand that's both smart and fierce, polished and disruptive. Their business style is also resilient. Gemini snake's mental flexibility allows them to pivot during downturns or failures, while Aries snake's unyielding drive prevents collapse under pressure. While one navigates the winds of change, the other anchors the ship. And when they trust each other, that combination is nothing short of revolutionary. That said, their worst-case scenario is a control war. If Aries starts seeing Gemini as a liability because of their scattered energy, or if Gemini starts viewing Aries as an authoritarian, the partnership can spiral. Power struggles, passive-aggressive decisions, and breakdowns in communication can quickly sabotage even the best business model. That's why their success depends not just on vision, but on emotional maturity. They must learn to step back, listen deeply, and check their pride at the door. When this partnership is healthy, it can scale mountains. When it's fractured, it can implode dramatically and publicly. But if they stick to their strengths, celebrate their differences, and stay mission-focused, they'll not only win in business, they'll change the game entirely. Verdict: power duo with potential for success, if they don't clash on control. Dark sides, storm warnings. Every dynamic duo has its demons, and the pairing of Aries snake and Gemini snake is no exception. If their chemistry can light up the sky, their darker moments can black it out entirely. What makes this match so volatile isn't just the strength of their personalities, it's how those strengths mutate under pressure. Where there's fire and air, there's not just heat, but the risk of uncontrolled combustion. Their shadows are not subtle. They're dramatic, destabilizing, and, if ignored, capable of tearing apart everything they've built. And the scariest part? These storm warnings don't come with sirens. They come disguised as flirtation, intellect, or just being honest. Let's start with jealousy, the slow-acting poison that can quietly infect what started as pure chemistry. Aries snake, with their intense emotional investment and instinct to protect what they consider theirs, can develop possessiveness so sharp it borders on obsession. They don't just love, they claim. For them, deep feelings are meant to be exclusive, loyal, and sacred. But Gemini snake? They flirt like it's breathing. Their charm is natural, often unintentional, and utterly disarming. They don't flirt to seduce, they flirt to connect, to play, to feel alive. And that, to the possessive Aries snake, can feel like betrayal, even if it's not. The friction is nearly inevitable. One sees love as a fortress, the other as a flowing river. Without boundaries and trust, jealousy morphs into suspicion, and suspicion becomes control. The irony? The tighter Aries grips, the faster Gemini slips away. Next comes emotional disconnect, one of the most dangerous silent killers of this relationship. Aries snake wears their emotions in their drive, they act when they feel. But Gemini snake, when emotionally overwhelmed, does something subtler, they vanish. Not physically, necessarily, but emotionally. They'll change the subject, they'll joke, they'll analyze, anything to avoid sitting in discomfort. While Aries is demanding emotional clarity, Gemini is retreating into mental escape routes. It's not that Gemini doesn't feel, it's that they intellectualize what others express. This mismatch creates a feedback loop of frustration. Aries feels abandoned, Gemini feels cornered. And the more Aries pursues connection through confrontation, the more Gemini withdraws into emotional exile. If left unchecked, this pattern leaves both feeling unseen, misunderstood, and isolated within the very relationship meant to be their refuge. Power struggles are perhaps the most combustible of their dark patterns. Aries snake leads through action, dominance, and an instinctive need to direct. They don't ask for permission, they decide. Gemini snake, while far more indirect, is no less controlling. They manipulate through charm, intellect, and suggestion. Where Aries demands, Gemini dances. They may say yes while planning to go around the decision later. This clash in leadership style creates friction not just in major life decisions, but in everyday interactions. Who chooses what, who wins arguments, who sets the tone. And neither takes well to being overruled. Aries may explode in frustration. Gemini may retaliate by outsmarting or outmaneuvering in subtle, cutting ways. The real danger? Neither backs down, they just escalate differently. Aries uses fire, Gemini uses smoke, and together, they fog each other's judgment until they're no longer solving a problem, they're fighting to win. Then there's restlessness, the slow erosion that happens not with a bang, but with a yawn. Both Aries and Gemini, and especially as snakes, are allergic to stagnation. They crave growth, movement, challenge, and the thrill of what's next. At the beginning of their relationship, this makes for a dynamic, unpredictable bond. But as time goes on, if they don't actively evolve together, boredom creeps in. Aries snake may start seeking new conquests, whether through career, competition, or temptation. Gemini snake may chase mental stimulation elsewhere, even if just in conversations or flirtation that pushes the boundary. Without a shared mission or regular reinvention, the relationship becomes stale, and in this pairing, staleness is toxic. It invites all the other shadows to come rushing in: resentment, withdrawal, provocation. They begin poking each other, not to connect, but to feel something. And that's when things go cold, or explode. If all these dark sides align at the wrong time, jealousy, disconnection, control, boredom, it doesn't just shake the foundation. It levels the whole building. A misinterpreted glance, an unsent text, a careless joke, any of these can become a match in a room full of dynamite. This isn't a mild disagreement over dinner plans. This is storm surge level emotional fallout. Their arguments can be cruel, cutting, and deeply personal, as both signs are skilled in psychological warfare when pushed too far. Aries strikes with blunt force, Gemini cuts with surgical words. And in the chaos, what gets lost is the very thing they once admired in each other: the fire, the brilliance, the spark. But here's the hard truth, and the hopeful one. Every one of these dark traits has a light side twin. Jealousy is twisted loyalty. Emotional disconnect is self-protection. Power struggles are misplaced passion. Restlessness is a hunger for meaning. If these two have the courage to face their patterns, communicate with brutal honesty, and grow in self-awareness, they can transform every storm into a breakthrough. But it requires humility, patience, and the willingness to step off the battlefield. If they learn to own their shadows rather than project them, they can rebuild not only trust, but a deeper, more grounded form of love, friendship, or collaboration. Their connection doesn't have to implode. It can evolve. Verdict: watch for emotional manipulation, ego wars, and passive aggression. Life goals: different roads, same destination? This is the arena where Aries snake and Gemini snake can both clash and quietly amaze one another. On the surface, their life goals seem radically different. One moves with fire and focus, the other with air and adaptability. One builds empires, the other collects experiences. But if you look past the methods, past the pace, and even past the priorities, you begin to notice something striking. They are, in very different ways, chasing the same essential thing: meaning, legacy, impact. They just take different roads to get there. The Aries snake is, at their core, legacy-minded. They may not speak about it out loud or journal about it at night, but everything they do is underscored by a powerful internal drive to matter. Deeply, permanently, they want their name on something, be it a building, a business, or a body of work. Born under the fierce leadership of Aries and the calculating elegance of the snake, they are obsessed with forward momentum. They don't just want to succeed, they want to be known for succeeding. Their goals are often structured, defined, and built around achievement, financial independence, social respect, personal excellence. And they're not shy about doing the hard work to get there. For Aries snake, life isn't a journey, it's a conquest. They are happiest when they're building, advancing, and becoming more powerful than they were the year before. Meanwhile, the Gemini snake thrives on movement, not toward a destination, but within experience itself. Their version of success is fluid, less about concrete milestones and more about the richness of the journey. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, wants to understand the world from every possible angle. The snake deepens that desire with curiosity, charm, and a hunger for subtle knowledge and power. For Gemini snake, fulfillment often looks like variation. A career shift that opens new creative doors, a city that reinvents who they are, or a relationship that challenges them intellectually. Their path isn't linear, it's spiral-shaped. They grow by doubling back, reframing, reinventing. What may look like indecision to Aries snake is actually exploration. What may seem like inconsistency is often quiet transformation. So what happens when they try to align these very different philosophies on life? Initially, there may be tension. Aries snake can't understand why Gemini snake isn't more focused on climbing ladders, building a portfolio, or defining success. Gemini, in turn, may question why Aries is so obsessed with validation and permanence in a world that constantly shifts. Aries may feel like they're dragging Gemini toward structure. Gemini may feel like Aries is trying to box them into someone else's idea of achievement. But here's the twist: they actually need each other. Aries snake, while driven, can become so goal-oriented that they lose perspective, burn out, or miss the richness of the process. Gemini snake gently nudges them to look up, to savor, to pivot when needed. Gemini helps Aries remember that life isn't just about output, it's about evolution. On the flip side, Gemini snake, with all their brilliance and adaptability, can sometimes float aimlessly or abandon projects before they reach fruition. Aries gives them the structure and accountability to follow through. Aries says, "Finish what you started." Gemini replies, "But only if it still aligns." Together, they build not just momentum, but mindful progress. As life unfolds, careers evolve, families form, dreams change, these two begin to mirror one another in surprising ways. Aries snake may discover that their legacy isn't in what they leave behind, but in how they show up every day. Gemini snake may realize that structure can actually enhance their freedom, not destroy it. They challenge each other's assumptions, and in doing so, refine their goals. They make each other braver, not just in ambition, but in redefining what matters most. They may also find themselves unexpectedly aligned in values. Both have a hunger for significance, though Gemini seeks it through wisdom and connection, and Aries through accomplishment and power. Both want to live a life that feels big, real, and worthwhile. They just define worthwhile differently, and that's where the magic happens. By collaborating on a vision, even if it's messy at first, they build a layered, multidimensional version of success that neither could have imagined alone. Their shared ambition may take the form of a business, a shared mission, a lifestyle design project, or a commitment to growth through challenge. Whatever the container, it thrives when they recognize their individual approaches aren't in competition, they're complementary. Aries snake brings clarity, drive, and resilience. Gemini snake brings insight, reinvention, and flexibility. Together, they move with purpose, but not rigidity, with inspiration, but not chaos. Of course, this requires constant recalibration. Aries can't steamroll Gemini into commitment. Gemini can't endlessly delay decisions in the name of keeping options open. They need to listen deeply, respect one another's rhythms, and stay focused not just on what they're building, but why. If they do, the differences that once seemed irreconcilable become the foundation for something truly transcendent. In the end, Aries snake and Gemini snake often surprise each other, and themselves, by discovering that they've always been heading in the same direction. They just needed to speak the same emotional language to see it clearly. Purpose, passion, impact, it's all there. The destination is shared. The magic lies in honoring the different roads that lead them there. Verdict, different methods, but shared thirst for fulfillment. Final thoughts. Should Aries snake and Gemini snake be together? So, do they work? Can this fire and air combination of two serpentine personalities create something lasting, or are they destined to combust under the weight of their differences? The truth is, there's no clean answer, because Aries snake and Gemini snake aren't a simple match. They're not meant to be. What they are is complicated, intense, and potentially transformative. If you're looking for a soulmate connection that's easy, smooth, and conflict-free, this probably isn't it. But if you're after something dynamic, passionate, and capable of reshaping your life, you might just be staring at the mirror. At their highest frequency, Aries snake and Gemini snake can be an unstoppable duo. Their union is packed with energy, emotional, mental, physical. Aries snake brings drive, depth, and unwavering passion. They're decisive, magnetic, and courageous. Gemini snake brings brilliance, flexibility, and multidimensional charm. They offer mental expansion, humor, and a perspective that constantly shifts, challenging Aries to think beyond their usual limits. Together, they form a force of forward momentum, constantly chasing new horizons, building ideas, dismantling limits, and rewriting rules. But this isn't some utopian love story wrapped in perfect harmony. It's more like a high-stakes opera, beautiful, loud, complicated, and emotionally charged. When they're misaligned, this match can quickly turn into a never-ending argument dressed up as chemistry. Aries snake's need for emotional intensity and certainty clashes with Gemini snake's instinct to stay fluid and undefined. Aries pushes for resolution, for clarity, for anchored loyalty. Gemini evades, pivots, makes jokes, or disappears into distraction. It's not a lack of care, it's a difference in emotional processing. And then there's ego. Both are powerful in very different ways. Aries snake asserts through action and dominance. Gemini snake asserts through strategy and language. When their egos aren't in check, their relationship can devolve into a power struggle disguised as clever banter, or worse, passive-aggressive silence. One wants to lead, the other refuses to be led, and unless they find a way to co-create their dynamic, resentment festers beneath the surface. Yet, where many would see this tension as a red flag, these two might view it as a challenge worth accepting. Because here's the secret that defines their compatibility: growth is the currency of their bond. This is not a relationship that stays static. It won't coast. It won't coast ever. But for the right people, that's exactly the point. Aries snake doesn't just want someone to love, they want someone to evolve with. Gemini snake doesn't want someone to fix, they want someone to grow beside. When they both understand that friction doesn't mean failure, it becomes fuel. They push each other. Aries pushes Gemini to commit, to dig deeper, to stand still long enough to build something meaningful. Gemini pushes Aries to lighten up, to stay open, to explore different ways of being powerful that aren't rooted in control. They shape each other, not with pressure, but with persistence. And when done with love and awareness, that shaping is what transforms this match from chaotic potential into genuine partnership. Still, timing and emotional readiness are everything. This pairing works best when both individuals have done some serious inner work. If Aries snake still equates control with security, or if Gemini snake still uses detachment to avoid intimacy, the relationship can spiral into confusion and hurt. But if both have begun mastering their impulses, if Aries has learned patience and Gemini has learned presence, then what once felt impossible becomes incredibly rewarding. They'll need structure without rigidity, space without distance, commitment without confinement. That's a delicate balance, but when it's achieved, the relationship becomes alchemical. They become more than just lovers or friends, they become each other's mirror and engine. Aries becomes more expansive, Gemini becomes more grounded. Together, they transcend the sum of their signs. And let's not forget the fun. This pair, for all their volatility, knows how to keep things alive. They don't get stuck in routine. They don't lose the spark. They're constantly evolving, surprising, challenging, and, at their best, deeply delighting in each other's weirdness and brilliance. There's laughter, late-night talks, absurd plans, and moments of silence that don't feel empty but electric. It's a connection that, once it matures, becomes utterly irreplaceable. So if you're an Aries snake or Gemini snake wondering if this connection is worth it, the answer is, it depends. Are you ready to grow? Are you willing to listen as much as you speak? Are you brave enough to give someone space without fearing they'll leave? And are you wise enough to know that a good challenge is sometimes the beginning of your greatest love? Because that's what this match is, a challenge. But not the kind that breaks you. The kind that rebuilds you, stronger, freer, and more alive than before. Verdict: some matches aren't easy, but the best ones never are. Like this deep dive? Hit that like button, subscribe for more cosmic connections, and check out the links in the description for more zodiac deep dives. Got a pairing you want us to break down? Drop it in the comments. We're watching.